Right as I'm about to go live, Pat runs away from the computer, goes, 1 sec, man. Let me go get some sake, bro. God, the most Pat thing I've ever heard. We don't know what the deal is with Crack Rock. I think he bailed on us on the last minute. But when God closes a Crack Rock, he opens a Ben Gretch. What's up, guys?
How we doing?
Welcome, Ben.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be back. I've been coming on quite a bit. I missed last week, but not really potting regularly. So I'm having a great time coming on and chatting with you guys.
Well, as you know, you always have an open invite to come on this show. You are, what is it like? I always forget. People say like the guy who does the lights for Fish is like the 5th band member. You know, you're the 3rd member of Ship Chasing at this point.
Love it. I'm the light guy.
You're the light guy. Yeah, that was sort of a backhanded compliment. No. You don't play an instrument, to be clear.
Ben is Ben just turned off my lights in here, and then Ben just turned them back on. Thank you, Ben, our light guy. So yeah, we don't know. Crack Rock may join us, he may not, but we are going to talk about our teams. We are going to talk about some interesting Week 8 situations. Like literally right before we went on, Pat and I are like, should we throttle down our DJ Dallas bids because the Carlos Hyde news sounds a little iffy? Ben, you are boots on the ground. What's your read on this Seattle backfield?
Oh, it feels like Hyde, but what news are you referring to that sounds iffy? I'm not always up on news by this point of the week.
So what I saw was Carlos Hyde didn't practice today with his hamstring injury, but Pete Carroll said it's not a major hamstring. Sure. So, like, I don't know what to do with that. To me, I still want to bet against Carlos Hyde at his age getting healthy from a hamstring.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas is interesting for sure. They use Homer less than his usual snap share, even though Carson went out. And there's been some Seattle beats that have been talking about Homer being like a problem area. The touches that he's been getting, I think he's not necessarily in favor right now. So you got to. Like, I would guess that Dallas has a decent chance to work into the number 2 role. And if Hyde's out, then yeah, that's great. But like, I'm assuming Hyde's going to play. He played like 50% of the snaps after Carson went out. 50% of the snaps for the game. And Carson played like 20% or something. And then I would think that Dallas and Homer a little bit will still mix in. They'd kind of be the split for the number 2 role. That'd be my guess, but I don't really have a strong feel.
All the stuff Davis was telling us earlier that Homer has like the bone bruise, but then Carroll said it wasn't an injury. So it's like, I don't know what a bone bruise is if it's not an injury. So it is a little hard to decipher right now. So how do you guys think about this? Like Pat and I had been kind of aggressive in some places we need a spot start with DJ Dallas, kind of assuming Hyde wouldn't play. But now I'm wondering if we should throttle that down.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to lean towards throttling it down too. The quote here, Aaron Levine with the report said, Carlos Hyde hamstring, not major, happened during a celebration, hoping it's more of a cramp than a pull. So it happened during a celebration. Maybe it really isn't anything. And then if Homer's also getting it, he also says Homer knee is feeling better, moving better, won't practice today. Carson, we'll see how it goes. I don't think we should be quite as aggressive as we were in that one.
It was in our first or our second main event team, the one where we have C-Mac and Aaron Jones. We also had Dak Prescott with the double stack with Lamb and Gallup. And that team has just, I mean, as you can tell by the names I just listed, fallen on rough times. We are, if Aaron Jones misses again this week, we need a spot start at running back. But Pat, I'm going to go in here and throttle down this DJ Dallas bit. It's too much, I think, right now.
It's too much, and we do have Josh Kelly. We do have LaMichael Pirine, who is playing passing downs, and they're about to get just absolutely walloped by Kansas City. So I think those guys are probably starting ahead of Dallas unless something kind of crazy happens now or something completely goes the opposite direction, but it sounds like it's headed. With
Dallas hasn't been like super on my radar, so I was a little surprised by that. I would personally take those guys that you just mentioned over him this week for sure, I think. I mean, we know Pirine played 70% of the snaps. That's not a good team or anything, but it's That's a good snap share.
That just still count for a point.
Yeah. I think I just got I was reading all of the injury reports yesterday and I was like, DJ Dallas could be the last man standing in this backfield. He profiles as a Thomas Rawls, Chris Carson type. He caught a few passes at the end of last game. And then we look at this game environment this week versus the 49ers and you're like, this could be a Yahtzee spot start. But I do think with this new news, we need to be a little more conservative.
Yeah, that might be fair. I guess the other reason I'm a little skeptical on Dallas or not thinking of him is I have Penny stashed a couple places. I'm still hoping that Rashard Penny comes back and is kind of.
We have Penny too. Yeah.
Right. In our league together, we have him.
League together, we have him.
Yeah. And I have him stashed in my other high stakes league as well. And I'm still optimistic about him right now. I think he's an interesting guy to be stashing. I mean, Carson, who knows what will happen? I didn't know he was as banged up, but now that he's banged up now, people, there was some comment that he's been a warrior. He's been playing through different things throughout the year. Draft capital still counts for something. And when Penny went down last year, he took half the snaps from Carson 2 weeks in a row, and then he tore his ACL. And he was playing well for 2 games. I picked him up in a couple of places, was stoked about him, and then he tore his ACL. I was excited for him coming into this year if he could rehab well. It's obviously been a slow rehab, but whenever he gets back, you have to expect they still care that they used a first-round pick on this guy, and he was just coming on last year before he got hurt. So I kind of think still that he could play a role down the stretch.
What do you guys think about, I feel like normally the conversation that comes up when a starting bell cow back goes down is there going to be a 1-for-1 replacement or is it going to be a committee? Do you think Seattle profiles as a place where they have all these guys that are intriguing on different levels? Do we think it would be a committee if Carson continues to miss time? Or is there a path to one of these guys really becoming the 1-for-1 Chris Carson?
I feel like that's Seattle's MO, right? Kind of to pick a dude and roll with it. Kind of hot hand. I don't know. What do you think, Pat?
Well, that's why Dallas intrigued me because he's kind of okay at everything. And that's exactly where Seattle's hit on some of these guys in the past. He had a 4th round draft capital this year, I think. And so he probably needs some guys to get out of his way, but it looked like we're kind of talking ourselves into this idea. If Hyde misses, Homer's not 100%, and then Dallas gets the chance to be the 1-for-1 Carson replacement, it doesn't fall on his face, then we really might have something beyond just this nice spot start. Maybe we get a guy who has a 2 to 3 game run while Carson's out. But I think they're probably going to lean on Carson and mix in a combination of Homer and Dallas. Lean on Carlos Hyde, if he's healthy enough to go, and then put Homer and DJ Dallas in kind of a committee behind him.
Real quick here, Nick says, can you guys show your results from last week? So Pat and I talk about this a lot. We're trying to find the balance of talking about our teams and also these interesting waiver wire situations. Because we have 30 minutes until lock, we're going to talk through some of these situations now. We might adjust some of our bids. And I promise you, once lock happens at 10, we will go back through and talk about how our teams are doing. That's what we wanted to do with Crack Rock as well. So I promise we will get to that. But I think there's some interesting situations we should talk through here. The other guy that has been coming up a lot this week in conversations right now is I feel like we got Rashard Higgins, who, people are looking to step in for Odell Beckham if you lost him. And then a guy that we've been talking about a lot, Denzel Mims, the rookie with the exciting measurables, comes in his first game, gets a solid target share, and now wondering how to think about him being on the Jets, but also being an exciting talent. Gretch, where are you at on these two guys on the waiver wire? Because they're available in most leagues.
Yeah, I've been going Mims over Higgins. And part of that's because, like you guys, a lot of my teams are pretty strong in the starting lineup at receiver. And then, probably not a lot of FFPC leagues, but in some leagues you have Rager too, who's available and now coming back. And I think some people weren't paying attention to that. So I have Rager ahead of both and then Mims. But to focus on the two you asked about, I probably don't need to start either of these guys this week. If I had to, I might lean Higgins just because he is kind of on a roll. He has that rapport with Baker. We like all those things. But I don't really know that Higgins' upside is that high. I don't know. I said the same thing about Fulgham on the show a couple weeks ago with you guys and was completely wrong. So maybe I'm just missing that. But missing these guys that are in these good spots, continuing to roll, and maybe he'll continue to roll. But I think the tight ends are involved there. The running backs are involved there. They still want to be run heavy. I think the pace of last week's game was probably more dictated by Cincinnati. They're the type of team that we'll see play in these types of games more than we'll see Cleveland play in these types of games. There was more lead changes in that fourth quarter. The second most, I think, was from Chase Stewart, the second most in NFL history lead changes. There's over 300 yards passing in that fourth quarter between the two quarterbacks, 5 passing touchdowns, tons of stats flowed in that game. That's not a Cleveland Browns type game. That's a Bengals type game. Their defense was giving up stuff, and then the Bengals offense was answering as well. So I don't hate Higgins. I just don't think he's going to be like this high ceiling weekly guy. And I think Mims is the player that I want to get. And, if he develops, maybe he builds a rapport with Darnold. Yeah, this Jets team's terrible. Sometimes terrible teams become competent. We saw it with the Dolphins last year. They were terrible for the first half of the year, then they were like good in the second half. You could have one reasonable receiver in a situation like this emerge. So he's kind of the longer term play for me as a guy who could be like any of these rookies that has inherent upside that could be a breakout in the second half, right?
Yeah, I'm with you on Mims over Higgins, and Pete and I have gone back and forth on that a little bit today, where we actually went through a period where Pete talked me into Mims, then we got to another team and I talked him into Mims, and then we brought on Davis and he talked us into Mims on another team. So we were all just talking each other into Mims. But I think the question for me now with Higgins, with the news on Hyde, and we're bumping DJ Dallas down, even where we could probably prefer the running back, Pete, are you preferring DJ Dallas or Higgins? Because there's a couple bid groups where you might even want to bump Dallas below Higgins or Dallas below guys like Mecole Hardman, who's available in one league. How far down are we bumping Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, the thesis behind the Dallas play was these spot starts and, him getting a little momentum, having one big game, and then seeing if he could hold on for a couple until Carson comes back. So I'm really starting to reevaluate that. And I do think I could be, I have a problem of how I think about upside, and I look at Mims and Higgins. I say it's not even close. Mims' upside is through the roof. But then, as Ben said, we see guys like Travis Fulgham. We see the opportunity here, and Baker likes him. He's had good games with Baker in the past too. So I think I'm trying to disavow myself of my biases with Higgins' profile and realize hey, we're about to enter the bye weeks. We're going to have more injuries. Higgins could be a guy who could start and produce for us.
Well, is Landry ever going to do anything though? It feels like Jarvis Landry's got to be the guy at this point, right?
You'd think. I will say on Higgins, a couple things that are concerning. He wasn't really targeted much before this week, so it wasn't like he had this profile where it's like, man, if this guy gets on the field, he's really going to deliver. And he did get targeted a fair amount this game, but he also had a yards per target of 18.3, and he had an ADOT of 15.7. So he was being targeted deep downfield. Yeah, and he was connecting on deep throws. And when you connect on deep throws, it's going to be exciting. He had 6 targets for 6 receptions and 110 yards. I mean, that's a little fluky. It's a little lucky. So I think that Higgins is probably going to go overvalued in waivers this week. And Mims is also tough, though, right? Because Jameson Crowder missed that game, and Jameson Crowder is going to suck up a lot of volume when he's back. And so I do worry about what the ceiling is for Mims. But I think Mims has the higher ceiling as a player, and that's where I want to break ties if they're going to be about the same to acquire off waivers.
Yeah, and I got real excited too. I mean, Blair and his expected points column on RotoViz today. I mean, just reminding us, this dude is 6'3", runs a 4.38, 6.6, 3-cone drill. I mean, this dude is an athletic freak, and he stepped right in off of injury cold as a rookie in a bad offense, in a bad situation, and had what, Gretch? Was it a 32% target share?
Mims?
Yeah. It was in the 30s.
Good.
Yeah.
It was right around there. Yeah. I don't think I checked that actually, but I know it was right around 30.
And again, I know we have to view all these situations individually, but again, what is the one theme we have seen this year? This was an incredible wide receiver rookie class in the macro, and these guys continue to step in to large opportunity, player after player after player. Guys like Mims in other years would have been like, top 5, top 6 prospects in the class.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of forgotten dudes because we got Chase Claypool sprouting out in every which direction. So I'm just trying to be a little more proactive on Mims than I might otherwise be.
Well, and the number that stuck out for me with him, I mean, the target share was great, but they didn't really throw that much. I think it was like 7 raw targets, right? So like I'm always kind of worried about the game environment too and all these things. Like you can get a little higher target share when they don't throw a ton of times and this and that. The number that stuck out to me, he ran routes on 79% of dropbacks. He immediately played a full-time role. Jeff Smith's been playing a full-time role, and Jeff Smith went all the way down to 21% routes. He'd been 85% plus 3 straight weeks and playing pretty well. And they were just like, no, we're not going to do this as any kind of rotation. Denzel Mims is an 80%, per dropback route guy, and Jeff Smith's a 20% guy. So yeah, I mean that's pretty exciting. Like that's where I'm like, okay, he's a full-time player in his first game.
Yeah, and getting targets. I mean, you're right, Pete. It's a 32% target share this week. Targeted on 26% of his routes. That's really exciting because getting those targets is important. It shows that the offense looked like they were designing some of those. He was like the first read, but also that he can earn targets. It's not just like. I get concerned when you see guys like John Hightower who are able to get on the field, but then they can't get targets. And that's J.J. Arcega-Whiteside being the ultimate example of this, where he was out there all the time last year and just was never targeted. So seeing that he is a part of the offense, getting on the field is really big. I totally agree with Ben that, they could have rotated him with Jeff Smith. We could have had the 3-4 week Chase Claypool experience where he slowly works in. That didn't happen. They put him out there right away, but he also gets targeted right away. So it's all great.
And his box score wasn't great because I just pulled up. They threw 23 times. They threw for 120 yards. This was like the Jets are bad, but this was a unsustainably bad game, right? Like they're going to throw more than 23 times. They're going to throw for more than 120 yards most weeks.
In the other thing, and again, I know it's only Wednesday, but Crowder didn't practice today and Perriman didn't practice today. And the Crowder definitely opens up targets, but we saw Braxton Berrios come in as almost a 1-for-1 slot replacement. But the Perriman one is actually interesting because he had a pretty nice role there for a while, getting a lot of those deep down the field targets. So if Perriman misses, the runway for Mims in that role is pretty big.
Well, is Mims our spot start then, Pete? Maybe he gets we have him in this league with DJ Dallas that we were going to go hard on. Maybe we bump up the bid on Mims.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to sell me on bumping it up on Mims. We're in an interesting spot here. Well, the other decision we actually have in that league, and I'll just pull up, I won't show our bids, Pat, feel free to go in there, but I'll just pull up this team. This is our main event team that we were pretty stoked on when we drafted. Like I said, we lost Dak Prescott. We've lost Christian McCaffrey for a while. We're going to miss Aaron Jones, it looks like, for another week. We do have LaMichael Pirine. Ben, I know you had some interesting nuggets about him in stealing signals. He's vaguely interesting right now, right?
Yeah, he played 70% of the snaps. That's a lot. Frank Gore's still playing, but Gore only played 16 snaps. He's basically just playing on some rushing downs. They both ran 11 times. Pirine had a rushing touchdown, and then he's running a ton of routes. I think, it's not a good offense. You're not going to get touchdown equity. Nothing is really great, but yeah, he ran routes on 52% of dropbacks. That was a jump from 34% the week before. He's working into basically the Le'Veon Bell role. And, again, that isn't an amazing role, but receptions count. Like Pat said earlier, you're going to get some receiving yards. You're going to get some rushing yardage. You can probably get 50, 60 total yards. You can hopefully get, 4 catches some weeks. Again, they only threw 23 passes in this game. So yeah, you can get to 8-10 points without a touchdown, and then maybe he scores occasionally. It's not like a great situation, but it's the HVT, the high value touch role in a bad offense.
Yeah.
Ben, where are you at on Mecole Hardman? He's a guy that's now on waivers in some of these leagues.
I think he's just a handcuff for Tyreek Hill, who has massive upside if Hill pulls a hammy or something. It's just so clear that they're not going to expand his role until Tyreek Hill misses time. But if he did, Hardman, every time Hardman plays, his stats are phenomenal, right? His yards per target has been ridiculous. His targets per out run are not great, but he's productive. He's explosive, right? And if he's going to be in this Tyreek Hill role at any point, if Tyreek Hill were to miss time, then I would want to start him. I think he'd be a top 15 receiver. It's just a very rare player, in my opinion.
Yeah, the thing, what I was talking about with Pat earlier, because Hardman is available in one of our leagues, like I view him similar to how we view a running back that has a little pass catching standalone value, but a ton of contingent value. And look, I know people feel burned because we hope Sammy goes down and then Hardman's role increases. We've debunked that. We know that that is not the case, but we do now know that he has some decent upside on a week-to-week basis. And if Tyreek Hill went down, he would be a mega smash. So that's why I view him as like a premium wide receiver handcuff.
We don't know that. We think it.
I mean, how would he not? If Watkins and Tyreek Hill were out, Hardman would smash. I don't see how that wouldn't happen.
What's the case against? I'm curious. Pat, what's the case against?
I don't know. I mean, I guess the case against is that I didn't even know who Byron Pringle was not that long ago, and they're playing him over him. It just they don't seem to want to rely on him. Although it is hard to imagine a world where a Tyreek Hill clone isn't used to replace the Tyreek Hill role in the offense. To what extent, his targets would be lower than Hill's, I'm not sure, but yeah, I want to believe too, guys, but I'm starting to lose faith.
The snaps last year are the reason I say that. And, Tyreek Hill got hurt in week 1 last year, and Mecole Hardman played a 78% snap share. It was his highest snap share of the whole year. And then he played over 50% every game from week 1 through week 6 to start his career as a 21-year-old rookie. And then Tyreek Hill comes back, and he only plays over 50% one more time. And it was that game in Mexico City that you guys were at, right? Were you guys at that one?
Yeah, we were at that game. Yeah.
And Tyreek Hill hurt his shoulder again, and right away, early on, left the game, and Mecole Hardman came in and played 76% of the snaps. And so, like, the 2 different times that Hill missed time, Hardman was over, well into his upper I'm not saying this well. He was playing a lot higher snap shares, and then in other games he was at like 20%, last year. This year he's playing more like in the 30 to 40% snap range. Usually it's like a little bit of an uptick from what we saw with a healthy Tyreek last year, which is actually, I think, a positive sign. They are trying to work him in more than they were like down the stretch last year or even in the playoffs last year. But Hill's been on the field the whole time. I think, Pringle, just from a size standpoint, fit the Watkins mold better. But yeah, if Hill were to miss time, I think from what we saw last year, and then just on top of how productive he's been, I feel pretty confident that it'd be like the no-brainer, not just because he's like the size speed freak, but because of what we've seen, that he would play a big role.
I also just want to put like a little nuance on this discussion. Like if you're looking for a spot start this week, like Hardman is not your guy. A lot of the things we're talking about is we're in these main events and we have different teams. We're in Football Guys. We're in the KFFFC. These teams are all at different spots. In some leagues, we need spot starts. Hardman is not on our radar. In some, we are sitting pretty. We are in the top 300. We are trying to win $500,000 in the most top-heavy prize contest imaginable. We need outliers. We need guys attached to the biggest offenses that can score a shit ton of points weeks 14 through 16. To me, Mecole Hardman falls in that bucket.
Perfect for that team. Yeah.
So, and also I see people saying too, when we're talking about the Mims, they go, well, it's the Jets. It's the Jets. Okay. Do you not like Terry McLaurin because it's on Washington? Do you not like James Robinson because he's on the Jags? We see guys get volume that have some talent in poor offenses succeed. And part of the reason we get them for cheap is because people just have these blanket associations that bad teams can't produce fantasy producers. That's a complete fallacy.
Yeah, and it's baked into their price. So,
yep,
we're not having to pay top tier.
Free. You don't even have to pay anything to pick them up. It's great. Yeah. I mean, Devontae, that's why I mentioned Miami. At this time last year, we'd be saying the same thing about Miami. It's Miami. They're terrible. They weren't good early last season, the first 6-7 weeks. They were really bad. They were using Josh Rosen, and then Devontae Parker was great the rest of the way.
Yeah, Myles Gaskin this year. It's like you wouldn't want Miami's running back. That's just a waste of a roster spot. Except it's not. P, have you talked yourself into Mecole Hardman over DJ Dallas now?
Yeah,
as we adjust our bids. Okay,
of course.
All right. Well, with that, we had DJ.
I did
over-
like your
over
guys'
this ball.
point on Dallas. Like, it very much fits, like, not to re-confuse the situation, but it very much fits where Chris Carson came from. It very much fits where Thomas Rawls came from, which one you mentioned earlier. Like, that is sort of the Seattle thing, like, for a guy like that to come out of nowhere. But they have a lot more backs right now. It just seems narrow for him.
Yeah. Again, like the whole thing, like I feel like this happens in DFS, like all these conversations, like we're talking in probabilities and we're trying to access upper percentile ranges of outcomes. Will we miss on a lot of these cuts? Of course we will. But what Ben and what Pat do with all their research is we're trying to marry opportunity with an athletic profile that allows us to capture that top 5 percentile outcome. We are going to miss a lot, but the few times we're right and we get Chase Claypool a week early, well, then we're sitting on a gold mine. So Denzel Mims might not be Chase Claypool, but there's a chance he is, and I want a chance at that.
But isn't it hilarious? Like Denzel Mims was getting drafted over Chase Claypool. I felt like I was taking crazy pills because I'm like, wait, if we want the big athletic guy, why aren't we taking Chase Claypool? And then now it's like, dude, Denzel Mims is not Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
The market has come so far the other way. It happens so quickly.
Yeah, you guys are out of control. Are we comparing Mims to McLaurin already? Well, first of all, Mims is an infinitely more athletic prospect than McLaurin. It's not even close. So, like, I don't. You guys aren't getting what we're saying here. We're targeting profiles that are coming
Steelers
into
fan.
Opportunity. It is Steelers fan.
This guy accused us of taking only 3 running backs when he himself had 3 running backs. So
It's all right. I try to engage with people. We're trying to talk through our thought process here, but again, I think all of us. I mean, the name of the show is Ship Chasing. We're trying to win a fucking championship and getting outliers on our team. No one liked Odell Beckham his rookie year. And again, you're going to say, oh, you're comparing these guys to Odell Beckham. But I'm just saying this class is producing just talents out of the woodwork. They are seeping up out of the floor every week.
It is so hard to talk about this point, though. It is so hard to talk about outlier performances. And you're right. Like, you're hesitant to bring up Odell Beckham, or you're hesitant to bring up these comparisons that are immediately going to say, well, you can't compare him to those guys. But there is something useful in looking at first of all, the payoff. Like, the concept of EV is, like, the payoff matters. How big is the payoff? Odell Beckham won me my longest running league. I guess it was for the second time because I won it back-to-back seasons. The first 2 times I won it, I had won it the year before with Charles in 2013, and then Beckham in 2014. And I was trying to trade Beckham early in that season. No one wanted him. You're right. Nobody wanted the dude. And then he ends up winning me the league. Where does that come from? What does it look like? It looks like sustained high efficiency. And it's so hard to talk about that. Like, that can happen. It's still an outcome that can happen. When I was writing about A.J. Brown this offseason, I had the same issue. Like, I was wanting to compare him to really good players. And then I finally figured out the way to do it was to talk about how he had an extremely high ADOT and a ton of yak. And there's not a lot of guys that had that combination. And when you looked at historically, a cohort that I built that had his type of downfield profile and yak, it was the Randy Mosses and the Terrell Owens and the stars, the Terry Holtz. Okay, well, luckily I was able to find a numbers way of doing that with AJ Brown. But the point is, even if I didn't find that, you should still be able to have these discussions of outlier type players. And AJ Brown is one, and there are going to be other ones down the line. And I think we should talk about who might look like that.
You're trying to find a profile of what the guys like Terrell Owens and Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson look like as young players, and then you concentrate your fire on that profile as you see it again, and you're going to miss, you're going to be wrong, but you increase your hit rate, and you're also going to miss guys who come out of nowhere. Like, we didn't expect Terry McLaurin to be a huge hit, but we're not going to ignore the fact when he starts breaking out and looking awesome, we're not going to ignore it. But in our initial estimate of where to take these guys, we're looking we're trying to just increase our hit rate by looking at historical comps.
Yeah.
And it literally is the same principles and concepts that we think about in DFS. We're targeting these low-owned guys that have this immense upside, and we are going to miss a lot. But when we are right, we are going to be right in such a massive way. So you can make fun of us. Okay, you missed on Mims, you missed on these guys, you played this guy at low ownership. But when we're right, Pat wins $10,000 in the Engage 8. When we're right, I win $10,000 in the SPY. Like, that's what we're trying to do. We're willing to fucking eat shit for a lot of
5,000 a couple weeks ago.
I'm sorry, but I watched the tilt space. This is starting to feel like a little carryover from a GPP week here.
No, that's what I'm saying. People don't understand. You guys want us to tout Cole Beasley and Randall Cobb this week? Knock yourself out. Go for it. Like, I'm trying to win a lot of money here, not eke by and feel good with this safety blanket of 6 targets.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
The Mecole discussion is the biggest one too, because when he did bad the other night in that primetime game, it was a big talking point. Who was it? Ricky D won the million, and he was like, "Thanks to all the donkeys who played Mecole.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it without you." I mean, of course, in DFS it's a different discussion. You probably were a donkey for playing him. I didn't really play a whole lot of Mecole that night, but. There's been a lot of pushback on like, you're always wrong about Mecole. And again, I mean, he's just the perfect example of everything you just said. Like, yeah, we're probably going to continue to be wrong all year on Mecole, but it's a bet with payoff. There's a reason to make the bet. Like,
yeah, and he's tied to Mahomes, and he's shown incredible efficiency. So
yeah.
Let's talk about a couple other situations before we can tilt in 10 minutes here. The other one, looking at some of the bids that we made, is trying to figure out what's going on here with the Arizona Cardinals. Now that we have Kenyon Drake out, they are on bye, which actually provides some nice cover on waivers this week for what you want to do here. Now, Eno Benjamin has been a guy we've all been excited about. Rotoviz has been excited about. Really nice prospect profile. He has been a part of the roster. He hasn't been active on game days. Pat, you alerted me to a man I had never heard of today, Jonathan Ward. Let's talk through this Cardinals running back situation, because there's some value here.
Yeah, Evan Silva talked about Jonathan Ward on the Established to Run show, and that's kind of what alerted me to him. And the Cardinals are a really tough team because they don't really have many beat writers. It's really hard to grind the Athletic on them and figure out, who the next man up is. And we assume that it would be, Benjamin, because Blair Andrews has done this backfield dominator metric over at Rotoviz for a while. That's awesome. It's what alerted us to Philip Lindsay. Josh Kelly scored really high in this. And it's just a simple idea of, if a guy is dominating the running back touches on his college team, and he's not valued all that highly by the NFL might be missing some signal with that player. And Benjamin had an awesome backfield dominator rating. He's a guy that can catch. He looks like a guy that could maybe, be the starter there if he gets the chance. But the question is, will he even get the chance to be the second guy? Because this guy, Jonathan Ward, he's more of a small school committee type of guy, but he can catch passes. And that might be what they're looking for if they're going to move, Edmonds more into some of the Drake role, and then maybe Edmonds actually loses some like third down work to Ward. That's one way this could play out. I think the way it's more likely to play out is that Benjamin comes in and takes over some of that Drake role, but it's just hard to get any kind of boots on the ground type information here.
Ben, where are you at on Cardinals and stashes? Do you think Eno could have a roll out of the gate, or is Chase Edmonds just going to be a bell cow back?
Well, I thought one thing Pat said was really interesting that I had thought was that maybe Edmonds works more into what Drake's role hasn't been very valuable, like the way they've used him. And maybe some of his really high valuable receiving role shifts to the next man. I've kind of had a little concern. It's about the only way that I can see Edmonds failing. But I also have not heard of this Ward dude, and most of everything else that Pat just said, I was just listening to. I had been thinking that Eno would probably be the number 2 and potentially would be the guy that would catch those passes. In Eno's defense, and to Pat's point, he had the big dominant rating. He also caught a ton of passes. He caught 82 passes in college, back-to-back 35-catch seasons. That's good for a college running back. So he certainly has the ability to catch passes too.
Let's do something actionable. I would say in most leagues, the average remaining amount of fab in FFPC leagues is, let's say, $400 average. Pat and Ben, give me a number on how much you think Eno Benjamin goes for tonight in a standard league, just the average bid across all the leagues. What's your number?
$11.
Yeah, I was going to say 7 or 8.
Yeah, I would even go lower. I think there's a lot of cover for him with the bye week, with him not being active and having any production so far. I do view him as a must add at those prices, depending obviously on your team needs and what you have. But I think he presents a ton of contingent value, even some short-term value. And if you're wrong, and then you just toss him back. But at that price, I think you need to find out if you're wrong.
And we have people in the chat saying $1 or $2. And you guys, those are median prices, not average prices, because I'm assuming that Blair Andrews dropped him in a league and he's blowing off 400 on
right. He's going to at least bring the average up a few points by himself.
Yeah. And again, there's all these range of outcomes. Chase could bell cow it, or who knows? Maybe he takes over for Drake. And the thing is Eno Benjamin can catch passes, right? Like his profile suggests he could be a competent pass catcher.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So he's pretty excited. And he was a guy too, like for people who aren't deep in the dynasty streets and college profile streets. I mean, he was a guy people thought was going to go a lot higher in the draft. Like it was a surprise how far he fell.
Yeah, he was pre-draft dynasty drafts. He was like an early second round pick in some drafts, or maybe it was a little bit later in a really strong class. I'm going to look up a league where we do our rookie draft before the draft and tell you where he went. But he was well regarded before. He went 212. Okay, 212. He went end of the second round. But I mean, before some guys that ended up being, before Joshua Kelly, before some guys that ended up being before Antonio Gibson in this draft, from pre-draft evaluations. So,
thing that's been interesting to me is so Drake hasn't been good, but Chase Edmonds has continued to produce even as the second back in this offense. So I am just naturally going to be intrigued by the second back in this offense. And then you tell me it's a guy that has a really intriguing prospect profile. That's a guy I want on my teams, even if I have to wait a couple weeks to find out.
Yeah, I feel like Edmonds has a profile as a workhorse, just physically. So I like that that idea.
This is just random thought, but I feel like we don't really usually see 7th round running backs. This is really grasping at straws, but a lot of it become UDFAs. It seems like late, teams at that point don't care if they miss on the running back. Is it like a minor thing that at least Arizona took him during the draft and didn't try to get him as a UDFA? Can we at least be a little?
Yeah, I think that's something. And Davis was mentioning we brought him on for a waiver call today, and he was talking about how
give him some color. He was on the recumbent bike.
He was on his recumbent bike. We call him during his workout on Wednesdays, and he tells us that we need to lower Rashard Higgins' bid. But he was saying that the fact that they have him on the 53 and he's not even playing special teams, that's pretty rare for a running back. Normally, you have
that's a good point.
They stash him on the practice squad and bring up a running back that does play special teams. So they probably do like him, and they probably do have some plans for him, you would think. But I'm also trying to fight the fact that I really, really want them to have plans for him. Is that kind of that bias that I have is having taken him in Dynasty and stuff. Pete, I did want to say I changed a fair amount of our bids. So in the last 4 minutes here, if you do want to look through.
That all related to DJ Dallas?
It all related to DJ Dallas, and actually took Mims up. In KFFSC, I took Mims up again.
Dude, we got the mind melt going. We're good.
All right.
I wanted to talk with you guys about the league that we're.
Yeah, let me pull this up.
And Mims is not we have Mims.
Wait, Sean
he's on our team.
Coleman. Before waivers lock, would you guys pick up Tevin Coleman? How much would you be paying?
Tevin Coleman, they activated him, right? I think he's interesting. I mean, they came up, they hyped JaMychal Hasty last week before that game, and then gave Jeff Wilson all the characters. Right. To me, that says they don't trust JaMychal Hasty. We know they trust Tevin Coleman. That's interesting.
Yeah, I would definitely bet on Tevin Coleman.
Yeah,
when he's healthy, he's going to play.
I think he's a sharp pickup. I guess I would have trouble getting over 200 for him, but I think you probably need to get him, don't you think? I would try to probably steal him in the 150 range.
Yeah. It depends on team need and everything. I don't think he's like a clear smash, obviously. So it's like, do you want to try to get lucky? Because you're probably right. Someone's probably going to bid big on him.
I think someone's bidding bigger than 150. Probably. I mean, yeah, probably up 250, 300 even, depending on. One thing at this time of year, check how much money people have. And if there's a guy with a big hammer who's needy at running back, then you're going to have to go pretty big to get him.
That's such a good point. There's two filters that you can do. And Pat and I do this on a ton of our tough decisions. First, you can look at the Fab report and you can see like, all right, let's see what the top wide receivers have been going for in previous weeks. If we're trying to get like a ballpark guess on how Mims is going to go. Oh, Tim Patrick went for this much. Oh, Gabriel Davis went for that much. That's a good data point. Then you also go look at the rosters, see what the team needs are. And then you can go look at an individual person's bid. So Pat and I were looking at a team that we thought might come over the top of us for Mims. We noticed they hadn't bid over $75 or had a winning bid over $75 on a single player this year. That kind of throttled us back a little bit, knowing they were a little conservative. So it's not a foolproof way, but they're these breadcrumbs that can point you to better decisions.
Yeah. And the last question here was Rager or Mims before waivers lock. Rager. That's where I'm at. And Pete was having to talk me. I was like literally trying to give all of our money to the guy for Jalen Rager. Pete's, stopping me from spending our entire wad of Fab where we don't have Rager. So I'm about as excited on Rager as it gets.
We're going to pull up our team with Ben here in a sec, but I didn't want to miss this one from Nick. Are the FFPC live drafts a good experience? Yeah. I mean, Pat and I had been, was it 3 or 4 years straight previously before this year? We didn't go obviously because of Corona, and we always have a great time out there, and highly recommend it if you haven't made it out. Pat, do you have any other words about FFPC live drafts?
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I definitely recommend it. I was bummed. I was bummed we didn't get out there this year, but yeah, we'll be out there next year probably, and it's something. If you haven't done it, I do recommend getting out there.
So yeah, now that stuff is locked here, we can pull up these teams, and I have all the tabs open so we can actually talk about some of the exact bids we have, and then we can refresh and see how we're doing. But this is our team with Gretch and Sean. What's up, Ben?
I have some teriyaki here. I'm going to go eat while you guys go over all your bids and all your leagues. Is that cool?
All right, and you got to come back?
Yeah, I'll come back in a few minutes.
Yeah. Sweet. We'll see you in a bit.
All right.
All right, I'll just drop him off there. Gretch is going to come back. Yes, Dan Masterson. I have done. Dan,
yes, that's a great point.
We were in a league. Here's the problem: don't do an auction with Dan because he knows what you're doing, what he's doing, and I did not my first time. He did know what I was doing. No, but it is super fun. And like they didn't spin up the auction leagues this year for online, so doing them live is really the only place you can do them, and it is definitely something to experience. And they have them at reasonable price points too. I think I did a $750. They might even have $350 auctions. So you can get in there and enjoy them. Those are super fun.
And live drafts are fun, but a live auction is like, it's so much better than doing an online auction. And it's like, where else are you going to be able to do a live auction?
Yeah, it's you can have your computer up, like if you want to reference your spreadsheets or whatever, but the draft is all done in person on a board. You announce your pick. There's a Vanna White who puts the pick up on the board for you, all that good stuff. So yes, you can use whatever you want, but it is all done manually in person. Is the thesis drafting late so everyone else is drunk a viable strategy? So Pat and I have thought this through from about 10 different angles. Where are you at on this, Pat?
Well, how much control do you have, Nick Barnes 98? Because they give you free drink tickets. So if you can see that thesis through, then yeah, there's a strategy there to just hope that you have a drunk draft room. I think it can be hard to draft that late though, especially if you're like me and Pete and you think you have a bit of an edge in terms of not grinding the news, but kind of projecting, like knowing the rookie class really well and making bets when things are unclear. I think that's where our edge is, that we actually do better when we have some, but not all of the information. And when you're drafting literally after the first game of the season, everyone's pretty much on the same page with what the week 1 depth charts are going to look like. And so that sucks some of your edge out. And also Pete and I use the drink tickets. So we're not benefiting from the silver edge either.
My ideal way to do FFPC would be do my main event drafts online, go to Vegas and do auction drafts live. And that to me is like the best combination, because as Pat said, the ADPs are hyper efficient by draft weekend to a frustrating amount, especially if you have some zero RB tendencies like us. Like all of the this year was unique.
It's more than tendencies, Pete. That's more than a tendency, bro.
Well, I was just gonna say this year was different because there wasn't preseason, which is what really solidifies and cements those ADPs. That didn't really happen this year. Like we talked all offseason about how Zach Moss, was going later than he normally would if there was preseason. But
yeah,
the overall takeaway we're saying is the FFPC live drafts. It's a fun experience. Like for Pat and I, it feels like summer camp. At this point, we see all of our buddies that we see each year, all of the guys there, Balky, Kaganovsky, all the people at FFPC are top notch. Very highly recommend. It's a great experience if you've never done it.
Yeah, to Dan's point here, it is actually pretty cool to see how different the ADP gets after the Thursday night game, because the way the FFPC works is you can slot those guys into your lineup. So when Kareem Hunt smashed that year, his rookie year with the Chiefs, he was like the 102. He went 101 some drafts. So being out there and just trying to get a sense of where that ADP is going to fall the day after is always really fun. I think if we do it like we did it this year, we have a portfolio of teams, it actually would be fun to do one main event team after the Thursday night game and have a mix. But I think in previous years, what we had done is we'd had some football guys teams, but then just our one main event team drafting on the Saturday before the first Sunday of football. And if it's your only team, I actually would say draft a little earlier, at least if you draft like us.
Yeah. Hopefully we will be good to go next year. So let's pull these up. So this is, let's set the table for these teams. We have the bids. We can actually kind of go through these, while Ben is eating his chicken teriyaki. So as I mentioned, this was our team that we were incredibly excited about. It had Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Jones in the Dak double stack to Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, as you guys know, all of those components have taken a hit in some form or another. We're still in the mix here at 4-3. We're in the mix here points wise, but nothing to write home about. We have scrambled. We got Matt Stafford. We do have Ayuk coming on, but Pat, this was a team where we are kind of looking at a spot start this week if Aaron Jones sits.
Yeah, we are. And I think those bids are actually outdated. I took the Mims bid to 103 and I hope that it must have, because it's showing up on
I haven't refreshed it since you did it. So the Mims bid, I actually went up to 103 because we need the spot start. We originally had DJ Dallas up above 100 to try to get him as the spot start and just hope things broke right. But it looks like things aren't breaking the way we wanted, so we just pivoted and made Denzel Mims the guy. I think long term, we did get Mims. We got Mims.
Long-term, Mims fits this team better.
How did they let us get Rodrigo Goatenship for $1? I thought for sure the Grinders would have been on Goatenship. I'm stoked.
I love it. All right.
So yeah, that was our one move, our two moves in this league. Adding Mims, getting Blankenship here. I'm very stoked about how that shook out.
Yeah.
And you said it was awesome. 102? 102?
103, yeah.
103, yeah. That seems like a very fair, solid price. That'll be interesting to check in on tomorrow to see where the next highest bid was. All right, let's keep going through these. So like we said, we're 4-3 here. We just got to make it through this stretch with Aaron Jones and Christian McCaffrey banged up. I think in a week or two, this team can really fire again on all cylinders once some things shake out. But I feel good about where this team is trending after a midseason bump here.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's a chance we get Christian McCaffrey, right?
Yeah.
Probably not. But, I think we're just 1 week away from getting McCaffrey and Aaron Jones back. We do need a win. I mean, this team, it wouldn't make the playoffs on points right now. It'd be really nice to get a win so we're in the mix on both points and record. If we lose this week, then we really need to smash over the final couple weeks to really have a chance.
Yeah. This was a good question here by Thomas. Do you ever use your kicker as a drop to pick up a guy like Dallas to see if more info will help you and then pick up a kicker on Sunday? So we haven't done this specifically with our kickers, but it is a strategy we have mixed in this year. We will take a peek on a guy on Thursday that we know we're not going to start, but we use it more for Thursdays. I actually don't know if we've thought it through exactly as he described here.
Yeah, no, I saw this comment and immediately thought that Thomas has identified an edge that we have not been using because the FFPC waivers have not been previously on Sunday. And so the amount of information that you were getting wasn't a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, it was some, but it wasn't Sunday morning level.
And this is a really good point. I've actually done this in other leagues, my home leagues with friends, where I will drop my kicker and wait till Sunday where I can make an ad all the way up till lock. But this is a very good point of something you should probably be taking advantage of on Sundays.
Henry Muto doesn't think it's allowed. So.
Oh, maybe it's not. There you go.
So maybe that's why we didn't do it.
That's why.
Okay.
All right.
We'll have to see.
Well, real quick before we talk, let's just take another peek on our other main event team because these ones process quicker. So this team is really interesting. This was the team we slow drafted way back starting in the beginning of July. Pat and I are talking about, Philip Lindsay and Boston Scott while I'm on Martha's Vineyard. That's how long ago this was here at the beach. So this team is pretty sick because we have the most points in our division here at 1072. We're kind of in the muck here with record-wise, but this team's really come together. We have Herbert and Bridgewater after dropping Wentz. We have Alvin Kamara on his nuclear season. We've gotten some nice spot starts from McKinnon and Rojo, obviously. And we continue to churn our wide receivers. We got guys like T. Higgins now starting to step up. Pat, this might be our best overall well-rounded team.
Yeah, I think the Crack Rock team is pretty strong. The ship-taking team is really strong. Chasing OT is actually starting to really come on. That's the team we drafted with Sean and Colum. All the teams are pretty good, but this team is really, really strong. And I'm really excited to see if we got Jalen Reagor here, Pete.
This team is really good. I like it.
And this is we were just talking about the pros and cons of drafting early and late. We were able to take some stands here on guys we really liked, and that pans out early. Let's see what we did here. We did, of course, get Jalen Reagor. I can't wait to see how much we overpaid.
I don't care, dude. I would have paid more.
I thought that was a fine bid. It could have been higher.
We didn't. Well, it just stings because we drafted.
Believe me, I tried to make it higher. Ben. I was ready to give like another 100.
Pat, did our second bid? Oh, we got Eno. We snuck through Eno for a buck here. Yeah.
Yeah, it was for a buck, I think.
Yeah. So that goes back to what we were discussing of there's going to be some leagues where he's more expensive, some where he was dirt cheap. So I think we had Eno for a buck. So that's a nice add here as well. I think those are going to be, we can check what happened in Crack Rock. I'm logged into Pat's account, so we didn't. Oh, we got Mims on Crack Rock. Sorry.
I want to defend ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
If Reagor was available, we were picking him up everywhere. We had dropped Reagor like weeks back in this league because we needed to kind of pick up the pace a little bit, and he wasn't dropped by the team that ended up picking him up until last week. So that's why we had to go big for him.
And that it's a really also we should just talk a little bit about how much things change because we had these two teams and literally 4 weeks ago, Pat and I were infinitely higher on our one FFPC team than the other. And it's completely flipped. Completely.
I know.
Like when you go to I can go here to Pat's leaderboard here and you can see here, this team is now 312. And this team was in the 1400s. And the team that was in the 1400s, at one point, we were top 75. And I guess that's what happens when you lose Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, Dak Prescott, and Michael Gallup, all within a span of a few weeks.
Although, to be fair to Gallup,
he he just sucks.
We lost him.
We did lose him, yeah.
Let's check in on the team that we have with Gretch. We can show you guys the bids we made here. I don't know. Did these get adjusted before I refreshed?
No. Sean does those, so I don't touch them.
So you guys want to talk? Sean, of course, Sean had already added Denzel Mims to this squad for $1 last week. I mean, you're not sneaking anything.
I once tweaked these bids. This was last week. I started tweaking these bids and just kind of adjusted some of the kicker order. And then I got an email from Sean Siegel with the subject of Boswell. And since then, I got to check with Sean before I tweak.
I did want to bring this up from Cobra because this is a discussion Pat and I had. Did you guys drop Gallup? So we were very close to dropping him. Our thought was this: let's wait until the trade deadline. Let's see if Dallas does anything interesting. It's probably unlikely, but maybe they bring in a quarterback, at which case Gallup's value boosts again. If not, I mean, I think he's a drop. I saw Mike Clay think he's a drop. Do you guys think if nothing changes at quarterback that Gallup is a drop?
Yeah.
Gretch?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's situational. I think there's still potential upside there. There's so much talent, and he has the high ADOT. So there's situations where a player – it's hard when you anchor to prior expectations, right? But there are players that I would pick up that have similar profiles to him right now. I don't think you can be very expectant of him to be good or be anywhere near what his ADP was, but I don't know that I'd drop him in all cases.
I completely disagree with this. I do not think Lamb is a drop. I think he's a hold. He had a very bad game. He had some bad drops in that game. I think him and Amari will continue to see enough volume to be relevant. Is the ceiling cap now? Of course. But I think Lamb has a role, and I don't think Lamb is a drop. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. And look, the way this had broken out, at first it was like Lamb and Gallup were kind of co-wide receiver twos. But I really think in the offense going forward that Lamb is going to be the clear wide receiver two because he doesn't have the super high ADOT. And this offense does not set up to support a guy with an ADOT of 16, which is where Gallup is right now. The other options in this offense are all below 10, which is what this offensive line and what Andy Dalton are going to support. So you're right. CeeDee Lamb had a really bad game, but he still had good volume. And his volume on the season is much stronger than Gallup's, and especially over the last few weeks. Like this past week, Lamb had a whopper of 0.54 to Gallup's 0.22. He had a target share of 24% to Gallup's 10%. You think like, okay, well, Gallup probably had a lot more air yards. He didn't. He had 11%. Lamb had 26%. So it's just one game, but it's indicative, I think, of the larger issue here, which is that Gallup is now a deep threat with a quarterback that's not really going to support the deep threat that well and an offensive line that's really struggling.
Yeah, agree with all of that. This game, though, the offensive line was really decimated, and they were facing Washington's pass rush, right? Like, I still think there'll be spots where they'll be able to get the ball down the field a little bit, is all I would say. And the guy, like, I'm trying to think of a good comp of what I was trying to say, but the guy that came to mind that's maybe a decent comp is Christian Kirk, which obviously has a much better quarterback and has been hitting on the efficiency side lately, but Kirk's target share is not strong. And I think he's kind of like a similar like if you get a little bit of an efficiency peak, he's a similar upside case to what you could hope from Gallup.
To me right now, he's like Marcus Valdes-Scantling.
Okay.
That's what you're getting out of Gallup for the rest of the season.
That's a really good comp, I think.
Yeah. That's not a bad one at all.
So we did get Eno here, which is nice.
In our league together?
Yes. Robust
not
OG.
updating for some reason. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, and now that, because we do have Rager and LaVisca, let's do this. Let's do this right now. Magnetar says battle of stream favorites, LaVisca versus Rager. LaVisca's box score stats haven't been great, but his role by snaps has been increasing week over week. I have a feeling I know where Pat's going to go here. I'm curious. Let's see. Let's have the stat nerds battle it out. LaVisca versus Rager.
Go ahead,
I think it's a great question. I might go Rager. I mean, we haven't seen Rager yet, so it's hard. Like we haven't. It's hard to make a strong case for or against what he is or what he's going to be because we haven't seen enough of him. I'm very excited about Visca. I've been stoked about him since pre-draft, But I am a little concerned about Jacksonville's offense right now. They've been a little more spread out than we wanted to see, especially early on. They've gotten a little more concentrated lately. It's mostly been Chark, Shenault, and Keelan Cole, but they're still playing a little bit of Colin Johnson even, and then obviously Chris Conley rotates in a little bit. And they're not really like I thought they'd be a fun bad offense, but they're not like a Ryan Fitzpatrick fun bad offense. They're not throwing as much as I'd hope. They're more James Robinson centric. And so it's nothing against Laviska Shenault. I want to be very clear. The guy has been awesome. Every time he touches the ball, he does one thing a game. When I watch the game, I'm like, dude, this guy's going to be so good.
I'll send you right back to your teriyaki chicken if you send one bad thing about Laviska. Pat, you were saying something similar on Stat Chasing about how the tweak we really need is this team not to run the offense through James Robinson, and then Laviska could start to cook.
Yeah, it sucks the way that this team approaches offense because Jay Gruden has been slow for a long time. We knew going into the year that he would probably be slow. He has been slow. But they just refuse to be in shootouts. Even like this past week, it should have been really fun. And it was really fun on the Chargers side. But they went through James Robinson for so much of this game. And if Viska isn't going to be able to pop in these game scripts, then I have a hard time wondering thinking when he's ever going to pop. And it's not his fault. Like he only got 3 targets. DJ Chark only got 1 reception on 7 targets. It was really kind of just tough to watch for this offense. I don't think they're ever going to open it up and be that fun Miami Dolphins, Ryan Fitzpatrick type of offense or the Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston type of stuff. You're not going to get that. And they're rotating him out. Like Ben said, even this past week, which was a little bit of an improvement in terms of Viska's routes run, he only ran around on 75% of dropbacks. You had Colin Johnson in for 25%. So you're seeing these other guys come in. You had Chris Conley in for 28%. D.D. Westbrook, I think, tore his ACL in this game, but he wasn't really involved that much anyway.
He hadn't been active much at all either early.
Yeah, so that shouldn't really affect things one way or the other, but it's just tough to see the ceiling. And so to the point that we were making earlier on Mims, on Hardman, we don't know with Reagor. He profiled in the preseason like a guy that they really wanted to kind of drive their offense forward. And although Fulgham has stepped up, and I don't think Fulgham's going to completely go away, Reagor steps in now to a role that they're so ready to bench John Hightower and have Reagor take those routes. I mean, John Hightower is offering nothing. He's just running deep, and they just lost to Sean Jackson, who they have in that role.
I was going to say, you want to know how bad they were looking for a spark in their offense? They're having 33-year-old Deshaun Jackson return punts. Like, they are desperate for an explosive
The first couple plays of the game what were they? They were an end around to Jackson, then a quick curl to Jackson. It was like, oh, we got Deshaun Jackson back. We got an offense now. Like, yeah they're going to use Reagor. I mean, I said we haven't seen him at all. We saw him a little bit. He got a 55-yarder in week 1. He ran routes on 84% of dropbacks in week 2. And to your point, Viska 75% this past week was his season high. So Reagor already has a game under his belt where he's 10 percentage points higher than that. So
my thing, this is how you guys all know how much I love Viska. Literally my only concern with Reagor is his health. Like, I think he's going to go nuts if he stays healthy. I honestly do.
Yeah, they're both awesome. Like, I do think Shenault can break out in the sense that basically what you just mentioned that Pat said on Stat Chasing, like it happens with rookie receivers. I don't know if this is really even true because obviously Robinson's a rookie too, but it seems like it takes a little longer for rookie receivers. We see a lot of guys break out in the second half. A.J. Brown last year is a great example.
I was literally pulling that up. I was like, let's see when A.J. Brown finally took off. Let's see what his
week 10.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, through all these weeks here, 6 targets. He was literally
had some big plays early, but it was week 10, week 9, week 10, where he started playing full snaps, and then he started having these 100-yard games down the stretch with some regularity. It was DJ Moore who did that the year before, where he finally started playing like almost every snap late in the year. It was Juju the year before that. and those are the best case scenario, obviously, for Chenault. Those are guys that ended up playing pretty well down the stretch. But his role could expand enough to where like they're like, this is the guy we want to run our offense through a little bit more.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like we still have Chenault everywhere.
We're not dropping Chenault.
If he were on waivers, we would both be trying to hold each other back from spending the last $450 or whatever we have. So
and Chenault is again, it's very similar to Mims. It's very similar to Rhaegar. These are very talented, highly drafted prospects who have the profile that can explode. Will all of them explode? No. Will all of their offenses allow for it? No. But these are the type of players you want to make bets on.
And the biggest reason to still be super stoked about Visca is the fact that when he gets the ball, he does good. Like
he looks so good every time he touches it.
He makes things look easy, and the things that are hard, he does pretty well. I don't. I can't recall the exact play, but I'm saying that every week I say a wow thing, and there was definitely a play this week where I was like, ooh, like, and I don't know if it was this last week or the week before, but I remember he like caught a pass, weaved through some traffic. And it looked just like everyone else was like afraid of tackling him because it's just kind of like
as they were.
Yeah, he just was kind of weaving through people and gained like 10 more yards after the catch in a way that looked way too easy. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty sweet. He's really good.
Yeah, it is frustrating from that standpoint of like, part of the thesis with Chenault was, the Wildcat, the sweeps. And I know we like swing back and forth from like, now use him more down the field, but it's like, how are you not manufacturing touches for this guy? Every time he touches the ball, something happens. Like it should just be a bare minimum. You get him 7 to 8 touches a game. Like good things happen.
The tough part when we were coming into the year, we were hoping for this green zone role, this Debo Samuel type that, the jet motion we just saw from Debo where he scored a TD right when he came back the week before last. And obviously Wildcat stuff that we saw at Colorado from Visca, and James Robinson has killed that because he's been so good that they don't have a need for this bulldozing wide receiver when they have a bulldozing running back to be the traditional, green zone type player out of the running back position.
Yeah, it's a shame Fournette got cut in that respect.
Yeah. It would have been a lot better if they had that.
It would have been so much easier for him to get on the field.
It just kills me because Fournette could be having the James Robinson season, and that's just what's so sad. Pat, where are you at? Because like this is on the Rojo stuff because Fournette had a much bigger role this week. I hate to be a downer here, but where are we at on this? The one positive is LaShawn McCoy has been almost completely phased out, and I believe one of the talking points we had was like we can survive a 2-person backfield. We just can't have this be a 3-4 person thing.
And that is where I'm at on it, is that this is actually what I've been asking for weeks. It's like, get LaShawn McCoy off the field. And they did. And then they didn't replace him with Vaughn. They replaced him with Leonard Fournette. So that was good. However, the specific way that they're using Fournette is going to be extremely frustrating for Ronald Jones owners like myself, because what I was noticing is that it seems like they're bringing in Fournette every single time they get to a third down. But then when it's first down again, it's not like he comes off the field. He can stay on for that following series. And if that third down leads to a first down in the green zone, that's a huge problem for Rojo if he's not coming back in. So I'm thinking that as of right now, the role that they just showed, Fournette is actually in the more valuable of the two roles because he's going to get a lot of the receptions, and it's going to be just kind of luck of the draw who's in there to get the touchdowns. Now, in any given week, that might not be the case. And I think this week is probably a Rojo week because they get the Giants.
Have you ever gotten that one, Gretch?
I've never gotten that one.
It's a good one.
I think I have a very normal white dude face, so I actually get Freddie Freeman, the current Atlanta Braves star, a lot. I got two buddies
better
who call me Freddie Freeman, and maybe I don't know. Like
this is legit.
That was a beautiful thing for me to help Pat eject after having to talk about Leonard Fournette while getting up a chipper jump. Anyway,
I was winding down that point. No, I think this week is a Rojo week, but I think anytime that Tampa Bay is in a competitive script or a shootout script, especially, and we're seeing this role continue, then Leonard Fournette is going to be the better bet that week, unfortunately.
Yeah. The actually someone wanted us to talk, like a guy that we just don't talk about at all. I think if I can find it. People want us to talk about Antonio Brown. I don't know if I've made a bid for him in a single league. I know in FFPC leagues he was going between 100 and 150 last week, which was too rich for my blood. Gretch, where are you at on Antonio Brown?
I don't have him anywhere. I didn't really react because I didn't really care to. I think, man, I just housed a bunch of spicy chicken.
I thought that Chipper Jones picture was getting you all emotional.
Yeah. Brown, I think there's been a lot of emphasis put on the one game he played with Tom Brady.
There's the grinder, Henry Mudo. That's been half of his leagues.
I love it.
There's been a lot of emphasis put on Brown seeing whatever it was, like 9 targets in 14 snaps. Or it was something ridiculous like that when he played that one game with Brady against Miami with New England. And I hesitate to put that much weight on that because that was a New England team that had no pass catchers and needed a guy. And it was like very clear when Brown was going to play that Brady was going to make Antonio Brown his number one guy. Obviously the connection with Mike Evans hasn't been there, but there's been this connection with Chris Godwin that's been pretty solid. He keeps throwing to Scotty Miller. Tyler Johnson's coming on. Gronk seems to have picked up to enough of a degree that I'm willing to be like, well, he didn't have an offseason. He had a whole year off last year. We don't like old dudes, but maybe he's going to be back to his normal self. He's been good enough these last couple of weeks and running routes down the field, particularly since O.J. Howard was out. And it seems like Gronk's going to have a solid season. I don't know that there's room for Antonio Brown to come in and have this, ridiculous targets per route run rate like he did in that one game with New England. I think he'll be good, but I think what we're going to see in this Tampa offense is Brady just making the right decisions based on what the defense is giving them, throwing where the defense is not putting emphasis. I think that's what's happened to Evans to a degree. A lot of the Scotty Miller targets, when you watch the games, they're just good matchups. He's getting into one-on-one matchups with linebackers and stuff. So Brady's going there. He's a good quarterback. And when you have Godwin and Evans and Brown and Gronk all out in a route, he's just going to take what the defense gives him. So I don't think there's going to be like a clear alpha. It might seem that way some weeks because more targets go one way, but I think it's going to fluctuate a bunch week to week. So I think it's going to be frustrating to have personally.
That I agree completely. Like a lot of these guys we're chasing with these rookies, we're trying to get them up into that, low 30s target share. Like they just take off and they're dominating targets in the offense. I don't see AB coming in and dominating targets in this offense. Who are you stealing targets away? Like Ben mentioned, like Gronk looks great. We know Godwin's great. I know he's hurt right now, but he'll be back.
Well,
we know Mike. Go ahead.
That's the bull case, though. The bull case is that Godwin's out and that he has an established connection with Brady. We just saw Evans over 2 straight games, and before that, have games where Brady just doesn't look to him at all. Scotty Miller, and Brown comes in and just has this instant connection with Brady and operates kind of like his Julian Edelman and just gets peppered.
I will say Antonio Brown is the perfect pickup for teams who started their drafts with 5 running backs. I mean, Antonio Brown, he is your guy. But the way we drafted our teams, the way we're stashing it with these high upside rookies, we got guys like Ayuk and Shenault and Rager and guys we're trying, T. Higgins, that we're pushing into our lineup. Like I don't know. I don't have room for Antonio Brown in what we're trying to do with our teams. But I vaguely, if I really squint, I can see the appeal.
Yeah, and Godwin's coming back, so I think the bull case is pretty thin. But I think that's the bull case as I see it, is that maybe he comes in and establishes himself quickly, and then Scotty Miller goes away, and Brown kind of goes more into that role. But I talked about this on Stat Chasing. This offense really reminds me of the 2014 Cardinals, that was an Arians offense, obviously, and that was John Brown's rookie year. John Brown, this tiny little deep threat, very similar to Scotty Miller. You've got Mike Evans kind of operating as this bigger downfield threat like Michael Floyd. And then you've got Chris Godwin as more of the slot guy like Larry Fitzgerald was that year. And so what I'm wondering is, does Antonio Brown kind of replace Scotty Miller and run more downfield routes once Godwin is back. And if he does, then I don't know that he's going to be all that consistent. There's just so many targets to go around. I think the question is like, would they ever consider moving Godwin more outside and putting Brown into that more high target, high value role that Godwin has? I don't think so.
Yeah. There's two. I'm kind of spacing on them, but there's two specific points I wanted to make because you guys just made some really good points. But one for sure is I don't think Evans is going to continue to just get 2 targets a game all year and be happy about it.
You mean the guy who's had 1,000 yards in every one of his seasons?
Like, I don't think it. Like, I almost was about to start saying this might end up being good for Evans. He might see more targets, but like that's a really timid take. He's going to see more targets, period. Like, it has been bad. There's been several games where he's had almost no volume, but to expect that that's going to continue all season and Evans is going to be cool with it. Like, he was already throwing his hands up. He's already getting frustrated on the field. He's a guy that wants the ball. He's very much an alpha type receiver, even though he's not being used like one. And there's going to be situations where Brady's just going to feed him to make him happy. It's going to happen at some point. And then the other point I was going to make is like AB's going to have good games. It's going to happen, some good games. It's just I don't think it's going to be very easy to predict. I think it's going to be pretty challenging.
And this is one of those things too, where again, I don't do projections, but if you did, I would challenge you. If you think Antonio Brown is a league winner, I would challenge you to go project target shares for these Bucs pass catchers for the rest of the season and allocate the target share. And you tell me how Antonio Brown is getting enough of a target share to be a league winner. I don't see it. I don't know how he gets there, assuming Godwin's health. Sure, if Godwin misses a lot of time, maybe we can start to talk. But if he's healthy, I don't know where you're pulling enough targets away to make that happen.
Yeah, and Scotty Miller, by the way, has a 1.94 yards per route run, 11.8 yards per target. So I would say if you own Antonio Brown, like your upside case is that he turns into the new Scotty Miller, I think, unless Godwin misses time. Because with Gronk coming on, like Ben's saying, Evans is going to get more targets than he has, and Godwin coming back, I think your best case scenario is that he ices Scotty Miller, which I think is totally possible.
That's completely possible, yeah.
Yeah, and then he takes on this role, and he's as efficient, maybe slightly more so, but I mean, 11.8 yards per target is pretty good. He's getting targeted 16.8 yards downfield. I mean, this is a very valuable role that Scotty Miller's in, and he's been efficient in it. So I don't know. I think you kind of need an injury here for Brown to really, really pay off. And it definitely does hurt Godwin. It definitely does make it harder for Evans to see those targets that he wants. And, could completely kill Miller's value. So it's not like I'm really even arguing for here. I just think it's maybe bad for everyone.
And let's also we've only been talking about the pass catchers. This is one of the best defenses in the league. They have been slowing games down. They have been, turning the ball over, scoring defensively. We also have a very good running game. I mean, Rojo before this week had 3 100-yard games rushing. We got Fournette on the ground here. There is a ton of things going that is just even going to suppress the overall pass volume in general, much less the crowded pass catchers itself. There are so many factors. I will bet against Antonio Brown being a league winner. However you want to set that threshold, I will bet against it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some discussion in the chat, like they didn't bring him in to be the third or fourth guy. Like, I get that point, but that's not the point we're making. He might be their best receiver the rest of the way. And I don't know if I think I would take Godwin over him.
I would also say, yes, they did. Yes, they did bring him in to be the third or fourth guy. They brought this street free agent who couldn't get signed by anybody to be their third or fourth guy. They have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And they also have Gronk. Like, did they bring in Gronk to be their third or fourth guy? Like, yeah, they also did that. Like, that's what they did. This guy wasn't signed by an NFL team through 7 games, and then they brought him in to be a tertiary target. That is what happened.
I want, if you're part of Team AB League winner, give me your stat line projection for the rest of the season in the thing. I want to know what you guys mean. You guys say first option, you say league winner. Give me your stat line rest of season. I want to hear it.
I mean, this is the point I was trying to make. Even if he is the first option, let's say he's the first option. You have to have Godwin and Evans and Gronk all not doing very much for him to be a significant fantasy option. Not every team's first option is a top 20 fantasy receiver. And once you get past the top 20, you're talking about top 30, top 40 fantasy receivers. It's a fluctuation. It's a weekly variance. I mean, like, Rashard Higgins could be in that range. I know it's ridiculous to talk about Rashard Higgins and Antonio Brown in the same sentence, but like, it wouldn't be that crazy to see them have similar production the rest of the way. And I'm not even high on Rashard Higgins. It's just like, there's so many options on this offense.
I love this comment here because it's like, if Antonio Brown wasn't crazy, he would be on a team. This is almost the reverse of like where you take away like a guy's long run and then he's like, he wasn't even good. It's like the crazy is important though. The fact that he's crazy, we can't just eliminate that.
Well, at least Dan, who is actually the smartest person out of all of us playing high-stakes fantasy leagues, says, I think it's more likely he's cut than he's viable starter. It's so funny, too, that we're saying you're bringing in that kind of trouble to be a number 3 or number 4. No way. The trouble is part of it. How many games did he play for the Patriots last year? I wish I could live in a world where just he's literally done nothing for a year and just walks in off the street and is this elite producer in the most crowded offense in football. Like, what are you guys smoking?
Well, also, like, why? I don't understand the logic there. Like, you're saying, why bring in that trouble to be the number 3 or the number 4? Because he's too much trouble to rely on. You can't bring him in and design your whole offense around him because he's trouble and might be gone. And this is a team that's looking great. The defense is looking great. They look like a potential Super Bowl contender. They're bringing in this guy they think can help add to that. But they're not going to make him their number 1 guy. And if he ends up doing something crazy again, then they're grasping at straws. It's just not.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Defense point is great too because their defense is legitimately really good.
That's the thing. When we say he doesn't have a higher ceiling, I mean, you need so many things. You need the defense to regress. You need the running game to regress. You need multiple receiving options in this offense to go away. Like, how you have to have a target share level for him. Like, I love how they just think he's going to come in, shove every single person to the side, change the entire dynamics of the offense. You guys
what
are
is
insane.
Happening?
You guys are absolutely insane.
We had 2 guys on this team, 2 wide receivers on this team. We're just like universal top 3-round picks. And then AB comes in off the street and he's the best wide receiver.
He just cucked them. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin just got cucked by Antonio Brown after not playing football for an entire year.
Right.
What a world.
2 years. It's been like 2 full seasons, hasn't it? When did he last really? No, it's been a year. Sorry. It feels like 2 years.
Oh, it's basically been 2 years because he played like 1 game last year.
Yeah.
And he was really good then, but it was also his age 30 season when he was really good in 2018. You know how old he is now? 32. Like it's 32.
My goodness. I thought we had a chat that had evolved past this line of thinking, but I guess not.
Hey, if Randy Moss signs tomorrow, we got to pick him up. We got to make sure to get him on roster.
What do you know? How funny is it that that Denzel Mims is just everyone is rejecting to with no competition, literally whatsoever?
Well, I almost think there's almost a premium to being cut and added at this point in the fantasy landscape. Like if Mike Evans was cut and signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it would be like they didn't bring him in not to be the number 1, bro. Like, what?
You guys are drunk. The chat is drunk. All right, let's talk about something else. You guys,
Des Bryant.
Why is no one excited about Des Bryant? Des Bryant is on the Ravens. Marquise Brown is dead.
He's playing the Chase Claypool role in the practice squad, dude.
Guys, why would they bring in Des Bryant to just be on the practice squad? Why would you do that? Throw up the X. Throw up the X, Des Bryant. You guys are out of control. God, please set a market. Please set a line, and let's get some bets in on Antonio Brown rest of season. You guys said league winner. I want to bet against you.
Yeah, it's so good. By the way, Private Tank, who said that AB's not old. Des Bryant's 31, so actually a pretty fair comparison on our part.
Des is younger.
He's younger.
Wait, we're not talking about a swing. We are saying Denzel Mims has like a 5 to 10% chance to be a league winner. The people in the chat are telling us Antonio Brown is a league winner. If someone in the chat wants to walk it back and say there's a 5% chance Antonio Brown is a league winner, we will all give you the same stamp of approval.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I said
100%.
I said I don't have him on any teams because I wasn't quick to act, but like I wouldn't mind having him on a team right now. He's just gone in every league because everyone freaked out and thought like 1,500-yard Antonio Brown was coming back and got him right away.
Yeah. I wish I shared that enthusiasm that
I would like to point out a nice little subplot to this whole thing, which is that Steelers fan for the first time ever was on our side, which I will say probably means we're wrong.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right, let's talk about something. We can revisit. I think Mims and Antonio Brown will be fun
you guys,
to revisit.
You do realize that his first game he's gonna go for 80-2, right? Like that's going to happen.
Yeah. No,
and
I know.
We're gonna be like, just wait. You'll have some bad games.
Yeah. No, Frank, I'm not picking AB up for $18 sounds great. But do you think he's 100%? He's a league winner. That's what you guys were saying, and you said he was the best wide receiver on the Bucs, which are both. Neither of those things are true.
Pete, but I know this league is a $20 budget in that league.
$20 budget. All right, I'm gonna go get another drink. While you come back, please, for the love of God, can we not be talking about Antonio Brown?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. All right, Ben, where are you at on AJ Green, who you kind of stuck with there? And then you were out on, and now
I was like, he's definitely dust. I'm moving on. I'm not going to do this all year. And then the last couple of weeks, he actually made some plays. What I think is interesting is when you look at his efficiency next to T. Higgins. Like even this past week where Green had, and I'm going to pull it up real quick. Green had a decent game. He had 80 yards. He had whatever. You had Green at 13 targets. And he gets a 782 line, which is good. 782 is fine for fantasy, but it took him 13 targets to get there. And then T. Higgins on 5 targets, catches 5 balls, has 71 yards and a touchdown. And for the season, T. Higgins is over 9 yards per target, and AJ Green's at like 5.1. You know, it's nice to see that Green's still producing, but at some point, I feel like they're going to be like, maybe we shouldn't keep throwing 15 targets to him. The point I made in Signals today is we talk about targets as a skill. He's still earning targets, but like maybe he's the counter to that point. Like maybe he's the exception to the rule. It feels
maybe we just rethink our whole philosophy.
Right. They're just feeding him targets, right? Like I don't understand why else they keep throwing him the ball when it's so much more effective for them right now to be throwing it to T. Higgins. 9.5 yards per target, T. Higgins. 8.5 Tyler Boyd. 5.1 AJ Green. AJ Green is, 3 behind Boyd in targets for the team lead and well ahead of Higgins. It just doesn't seem like smart use of your pass volume.
It also just makes what T. Higgins has done all that more impressive. I mean, imagine if T. Higgins was getting the consistent target share volume that AJ Green is.
And that was one of my big signals this week was that, what Higgins is doing if Green ever does fade out of the picture or any of this volume shifts over, which you'd have to think over time it will. Like I think Higgins is the league winner. I would take Higgins over Antonio Brown in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat, I would take Higgins. And
the chat has walked it back. They're now down to he's 6% a league winner. I think we're all speaking the same language, guys.
Yeah, that sounds great.
6% of the time, AB is a league winner. We are all on the same page now.
Oh, I thought that said 0.6. No, I
oh my goodness.
No, I think Higgins is in a smash spot. I like to just mention things for Dynasty, and they franchise tagged AJ Green. That's the last time they're doing that. So you're going to have Higgins seeing a ton more volume, and he has shown a nice connection with Burrow. Obviously, Burrow looking really good. I think he could form an amazing tandem with Tyler Boyd, where Higgins is kind of consolidating some of that AJ Green role and his own role. He's looking like, this is probably the last buy window on T. Higgins you're going to get in a long time.
I mean, can you even buy him right now, though?
It's hard.
Probably not, but it's easier now than it's going to be, once when AJ Green is not brought back and they don't draft someone super high, it's going to be real tough.
I did want to pull up our team with Crack Rock. He's not making it onto the stream, but this is the team we drafted with him. It's currently 6-1 in the top 200 of the FFPC main event.
What bids did we put in this week?
I went and throttled him back. I made sure we got Mims, and then we put in a floor bid where we scooped up Aguilar as well.
Ooh,
so this is a team where we lost Odell. But this team is just set up really nicely. I mean, we have Allen and we got Herbert for cheap. We picked up Claypool for $1 before he broke out. At running back, we got the big dog. We got Myles Gaskin. We have Eckler still on IR. And then last week, we've lucked into Jamal Williams, who we might start again this week if Aaron Jones misses. And then we got some of this young wide receiver talent percolating. LaVisca, added Mims. And then, of course, we cranked it purple. We got Hunter Henry, Hawkinson, and Jared Cook. So, man, this team it's balanced. It's deep. It has upside. I mean, this thing can make a run.
Yeah, this team and our first main event team remind me of just a thing with FFPC. It's important to get quarterback upside in FFPC, but you don't have to get it right away. And with this team, I mean, we did get Josh Allen here, but Josh Allen fell really, really late to us. That's a really good point. We should get one of Crack Rock's interns on here because we actually
love that.
I would love that. That would be an amazing segment. And we often adjust Crack Rock's interns bids as well. But what we did here is we got a really nice value on Allen. And then because we already had Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, and Hunter Henry, when we saw that Justin Herbert was looking pretty good a few weeks, 3-4 weeks back, we added him. In our first main event that we drafted, we took a shot on Boston Scott, Carson Wentz, and Jalen Reagor. And actually at one point had dropped all of them. And we quickly moved on and looked and surveyed the field and said, where is their upside? And we have Justin Herbert there too. So it's possible in FFPC to kind of ignore quarterback or just be completely wrong at quarterback and still get guys with really high ceilings. So it's something you do need to have. You do need to get the high ceiling at quarterback, but you don't need to draft it necessarily.
Yeah, and this is a team. I mean, we lose Odell, and honestly, like maybe Crack Rock would feel differently, but it almost feels like a relief because Odell has been one of these guys that you're having to decide on in this lineup each and every week, and now it just really thins out here. I know people have like the pendulum swung a little bit on Claypool, where people are still like down on him because of last week. I know both of you guys have talked about how his role didn't change at all. It was just a game where he didn't get targeted as much. So, man, I'm very excited about this team. Chenault and Mims can still come on strong, getting to decide between Hunter Henry and Hawkinson. We have stacking with Allen to Diggs, with Herbert to all of the Chargers. Like, this has every element I want of a team that can make a big push.
Yeah, no, I was would have been nice to talk to Crack Rock about it tonight. He stood us up for some kind of function that happened last minute. In the day
yeah, that is a good team. I wasn't paying any attention. I was reading something on Twitter, but that's a good team. I was hearing you talk about the team, but I wasn't hearing the points you were making about the team. But Diggs and Allen and DJ Moore. Ooh, and you got the stack with Josh Allen. And you got Herbert. You got Herbert and Allen.
The time Ben Gretch took a look at this team. Yeah. I mean, and we've just run, really pure on like our late picks and our pickups. I mean, we've added Gaskin, Herbert, Chase Claypool. Like these guys have hit big. Now we add Mims and we cranked it purple.
Henry too. If
I will say
you're going to have the sexiest double stack too. Woo.
Calm down, man.
This is a good team.
Man, let's see the hands.
I will say, like,
oh, go ahead.
I want to make a point about co-owning with Crack Rock.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think that there's something to be said. Like, I really feel like what Crack Rock does is just every week he kind of price enforces that class, like that number one pickup. He identifies, it's almost like a cash game mindset or something, if you're going to relate it to DFS, or it's just like the guy that everyone's going to like as the number one pickup is Myles Gaskin or whoever. And I'm going to put in a bid that's live for that guy. And he just puts that bid in across probably a bunch of leagues. And we have Myles Gaskin here. That's not a dude that we really have in most of our, I think we have him in chip taking maybe, but that's it.
Yeah.
And we should have more Myles Gaskin, but I think he price enforces, like sometimes when we price enforce it like if everyone forgot this guy exists, we'll get him.
Yeah.
But he price enforces at a level that's like reasonable. It's like he might be the top bid by $40, but on average, he's going to be, $10, $15 below whatever the average bid is across all FFPC leagues, potentially. I'm not sure, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting as we co-own with Crack Rock.
He might be offended, or one of his interns might be offended. He was more aggressive on Higgins than Mims, and I went and flipped it. And I put Mims as the higher bid here. I thought with this team, it was the same reason we stashed Claypool's. Like, this team is motoring. We need to be taking the biggest cuts possible. I mean, if Antonio Brown was available, I would have emptied the fucking clip for that dude, because that's the guy that brings you to the promise.
6% chance, baby.
Oh my God. But anyway, but yeah, I do agree with you, Pat. And that's it. You see that reflected in the guys who do a ton of drafts in their draft strategies as well, where they're trying to scoot value. They do a ton, and that's how they use the market and the ADP, and they allow other people to make mistakes relative to that ADP, and they capitalize on it. And then you can realize those gains across a big portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been cool to, co-own with a guy who has that kind of experience, because we're often going like much more contrarian and trying to be right a lot more with, leveraging like all of the research that we do in terms of the rookie profiles, what's happening so far throughout the season, and trying to identify real opportunities. But there is something to be said for using the wisdom of the crowd.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to check in on our team with Davis as well. Our ship taking, we got an excited DM from him. He was glad we got Mims. This is another one of our good teams here. We did lose Dak, but we've since tried to scramble. We got Jimmy and Tua. This is another team really nice at running back. Kamara, Gaskin, Rojo, and Antonio Gibson on the bench as well. It looks like we were able to add both Mims and DJ Dallas in this league, and we didn't go too heavy on either of those. We're also trying to figure it out at tight end. We lost Zach Ertz, and luckily Dick Rod fell into our life. We had Gerald Everett last week, so we're still trying to figure tight end out, still trying to figure out quarterback, but this team in pretty good shape with running back and wide receiver. What's your thought on DJ Chark, Gretch? He's like a guy that's been kind of all over the place.
I mean, a lot of what we said about Laviska Shenault earlier, I think applies to Chark too. It's just not a great offense for passing volume right now. And I think that's part of the reason to be a little bit concerned about Shenault is even Chark's not producing. I mean, there's just no real production in this offense. I mean, there's different ways to look at that kind of thing, but you could probably look at how many wide receiver one type games and offense has had. And this Jacksonville offense probably hasn't had very many. And that's not good for anybody. I like Chark, obviously. He's a talent. He's been their number one since last year. He's had some big target games and just been inefficient, and I would expect that efficiency to swing back around. Like he had a 14 target game the other week and only put up 45 yards. I like him, but it's just not a great offense.
Jamarius asks, does Dick Rod hold value with Goddard coming back? This was actually something Pat and I were talking through today, and one where we want to wait on some more information to see if Goddard plays this week. If Goddard is trending in the right direction by Sunday a.m. at 10 a.m. when waivers run, the Eagles have their bye that week after. So if Goddard's back, you can cut Dick Rod, know that no other team can start him, and then has his bye. And then to me, by that point, Goddard's probably going to fully be back. So I am on the fence as of right now, but I do see the paths to dropping Dick Rod by Sunday. Pat, where are you at? You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I see the path, and I've kind of made peace with the idea of cutting Dick Rod, but this is an offense that, we took Goddard with the idea of they can support two tight ends. It's like maybe one of the few offenses where they can support two tight ends. They couldn't support two tight ends because I don't think any offense can support Zach Ertz right now. So what I would really like is if I can afford to keep Dick Rod through one more week, then I get to see two things. I get to see, does he repeat what he did this past week, which was really impressive? And how does Jalen Reagor look? Because if Jalen Reagor comes in and just gets a ton of targets, then we really have no use for Dick Rod. But if Jalen Reagor falls off or just doesn't kind of live up to the hype that that guys like me have for him, then there are going to be plenty of targets available for Dick Rod. Ben, where are you at?
Just say Dick Rod. The people want it, Chipper.
I love that very, very serious cadence. Like I'm at peace with cutting Dick Rod.
I could tell that was fucking with you, so I just tried to do it as much as possible as I threw it to you. Yeah.
I also real quick just want to say, and I'm not going to give away the whole cow. You need to buy it on ETR, but a few names we've discussed that are in the air yards buy low model this week: CeeDee Lamb, AJ Green, and DJ Chark. Those are just 3 names I will mention that have been getting a lot of volume, but underproducing that volume, and do with that information as you will.
You're high on Chark. Leone was talking about you. We're trying to talk. Did you guys play him last week in your big lineups? Oh,
we had him in one lineup.
Okay.
Who did they play? Who did the Jags play?
Last week?
Yeah.
The Chargers, yeah.
The Chargers. Oh, yeah. I think, no, we actually didn't end up playing him. One of my spy lineups or whatever, I liked a little Justin Jackson, DJ Chark correlation. Sure. That obviously.
I never looked at the winning GPP lineup from last week. What was it? Because there were so many ways to get there. Like who won the Millie? I know they had
the Monday night game.
It was
Kyler.
You had the Kyler. You had to have like Kyler, Lockett, and Nuke, and then you also had to have Adams and Jamal Williams. And then a lot of people had Kamara, and a lot of people, like the winning GPP lineups, had Harrison Bryant because he was 2,500.
Right.
And then you had to have Washington football team or Kansas City defense.
Yeah.
Okay. There was actually a question I wanted to talk about, a guy we've been excited about who is now back. I don't know if I can find the question, but someone wanted us to talk about Zach Moss. Where are you guys at with Zach Moss now that we saw him play a full game?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I was listening to Ian Hartitz and Dwayne McFarland, their podcast over at PFF. They were talking about Singletary and Moss, and I sometimes don't trust myself with the Moss evaluation because like I was completely fading Singletary and very heavy on Moss. But they were like, yeah, I think Singletary has real potential to get passed by Moss here. So I'm excited to hear that. I don't think they have the same kind of pro Moss bias. So that was my take when I watched the game. I'm like, and when I see the stats afterwards, it's like Moss looks like he could make a play for this role, and Singletary had his chance to really solidify the role. He was giving up work to TJ Yeldon. I think that. To me, I slightly favor Moss. I think I have him just literally side by side in my dynasty rankings. So they're close, but I lean Moss.
Gretch?
I have it as virtually a 50-50 split, which is what we kind of saw in weeks 1 and 2. We didn't see in his first game back in week 6, Moss's first game back. But McDermott, right? McDermott? Why am I confused on this? It's because it's my third
Sean
game.
McDermott?
Sean McDermott, yeah. That's how he used Singletary when he was hurt last year. Singletary played in the game. It just reminded me of that looking at the snap shares. Singletary in the game he came back played 30. I'm pulling it up right now. Played 38% of the snaps in week 7 of 2019 after missing weeks 3 through 6. And he had played 68% in week 1. And then he immediately played 68% in week 8 after that one kind of slow comeback game. He was back to his normal role, and he stayed in a heavy role the rest of the season. And that's basically what we saw from Moss here was the first couple games that he was basically in a perfect 50-50 split. And I think that's just sort of what they wanted. He was at 45%, 46% of the snaps, and then he misses a few games. He comes back at 25%, and then he jumps back to 47%. So it seems like they have this idea carved out where he's going to play the 45 to 50% range, and Singletary is going to play the 50% to 55% range. That's just my take on the low roll in week 6. But I don't think he's like growing to anything. I think it's just like they brought him back slowly for one game, and we're probably just at a 50-50 split the rest of the way. It's kind of my read on it.
Dan's trying to set you up for a trap stat plug, Ben.
It's funny. Singletary got the only green zone touches last week, but no, that's a good stat. That's the reason to be on Moss. They almost ran the exact same number of routes this week. I think it was one different. And then Moss doesn't have a ton of green zone touches yet, but I was watching that a little bit. He had a bunch in week 1. Then I was watching it in week 2, was watching it in week 6, and he's in those packages for sure. He just hasn't got a lot of touch. I don't think he has a green zone touch since week 1, but he's on the field in those roles where they were using Frank Gore last year. And like Dan said, he I guess he's saying he's had 3 carries inside the 5 so far this year, but also last year he had probably like 3 all year. I think he didn't have a lot. So yeah, it seems like they don't want to use Singletary in that role. Moss is the bigger back. That's the upside for Moss from a fantasy perspective.
This one's also funny too, saying Singletary is like Montgomery, because it's actually Zach Moss who profiles very similar to Montgomery from an athletic profile and production standpoint. But it does seem like everything's pointing to a true 50-50 here. And man, yeah.
This was the week of the 50-50. Like that. This was the week of the 50-50 split. We got that there. We got it in Tampa Bay, unfortunately, but Fournette. And then somebody was saying we should talk about Le'Veon Bell and CEH, and that was the other one that.
Yeah, no, I would love to talk about this with you, because I was listening to Evan Silva, and he had a pretty different take than what my take was. He was thinking that it really is a 50-50 split after this game. I thought it was a bit more bullish for CEH, but still that, it was basically a committee, but that CEH was looking like he was leading the committee. What was your take, Ben?
Yeah, again, I always go back to like snaps, routes, all that stuff, especially with running backs. I think CH had the 4 targets, right? But he only caught 1 pass, and Bell didn't have any targets, but the routes per drop back were 45% for CEH, 38% for Bell. They were, I think it was 13 total routes to 11 total routes, or 2 routes apart. So Bell came right in and took like half the routes. That was a season low for CEH. It was a season low snap share for CEH. So for that to be Bell's first game and immediately CEH be setting season lows in both of those regards, pretty concerning for me.
It was against Denver where they had DeAndre Washington close out the game. I know that CEH was in for like much of to close out the game. I think the series before they brought in DeAndre Washington, CEH was in on that series. So the idea, I'm not saying that they had already just shut down CEH for the day, brought in Le'Veon Bell. That didn't happen. But you do get to a point, right, where you're like way, way up on Denver.
Yep. And
you might want to see what you have in Le'Veon Bell. And maybe you're having these guys rotate series. So to me, one of my takeaways from this week was it was just really hard to take away much.
No, and you know what? You might be totally right. This is a good point. I went through the entire game drive by drive, like the game log, and was looking at it actually to try to get a good read on this. And basically all Le'Veon Bell, like I'm talking about his percentages, but all he really got was a full drive late in the first quarter and a full drive late in the third. But Kansas City basically didn't touch the ball in the second quarter because they had a pick 6 and then they had a kick return for a touchdown. Denver had 1, 2, 3 straight drives, and Kansas City had a 4-play drive in there. I think Kansas City ran like 6 offensive plays in the second quarter. And then the fourth quarter, to your point, they had 1 early drive in the fourth, but then after that, it was Chad Henne and DeAndre Washington season for the last 2 drives. So we basically only got 2 quarters. And in each of those quarters, Le'Veon Bell took a full drive, essentially, late in the first and late in the third. But CEH was out there for the few snaps in the second, and he started the first quarter. He started the third quarter. There's maybe some reason to think that the way that the percentages split out isn't necessarily valid because this is just a weird game. Like I was saying, there wasn't a lot of plays in the second, and there wasn't a lot of first-team plays in the fourth. And so maybe you're right. Maybe it was just these couple of drives for Le'Veon that make it look worse for CEH. It's a tough one to read. I think your
Yeah.
last point was the best one. It's a tough one to read through one game.
Yeah, and I think sometimes like we're so eager for information, and I'm guilty of this as anyone. Like I really want to know how this backfield's going to shake out, but this game I don't think gave us that much new information. It's basically like, yeah, they're going to be in some kind of committee somehow. If you have a really strong take out of this game, I'm willing to bet against you.
Yeah,
I just don't think there's that much to take from it.
I think that's fair. But the one thing I will say is like their third drive of the game, Le'Veon Bell played the entire drive. He wasn't just playing the Darrell Williams, come in the third down roll or whatever. He got the carry on 1st and 10. He got the carry on the next play. They threw 2 plays, and then he got another carry. And he had the same type of thing in the third quarter. CH has not been giving that up to any other back so far. So that is one thing that's different.
That is an interesting dynamic that we see in backfields where some of these guys have specific roles and they're utilized and deployed in certain situations. Whereas Andy Reid might be looking at these guys and being like, hey, I kind of roughly think they have similar skill sets. I'll just alternate drives. In the same way we saw the Falcons a few years ago with, say, Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman, where they just let them alternate an entire drive because they trust them in the different situations. If we need to go up tempo, it's not like we need to pull one guy off the field. That guy is suited to execute that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think this is like a tangent a little bit, but I think that's the sharpest way to do it. Like, why would you tip your hand about like this guy is in for this situation? I'm going to pass now. This is my passing down back. Like, I think it's sharper just to leave a guy in for a whole series and kind of rotate them that way to keep them fresh. So
I agree with that, Pat. I was going to kind of make the same point, and I think it was the right time to make that kind of tangent point because it is way sharper to do that. You want versatile backs, and you want your backs to be fresh too. I think unless you have Christian McCaffrey, but I have a maybe AJ Green take on Le'Veon Bell, but like I feel like he's still okay. And I said that a couple weeks ago in Stealing Signals, but he was good with Pittsburgh. I expect him to be bad. I think we all expect him to be bad with the Jets. A big part of my process with running back evaluation is team situation. It's not like we go like I didn't really realize that people don't necessarily grasp this as much until I've had some discussions this year, I think, with some specific players, but about some specific players with some other fantasy analysts. But like running back doesn't matter or whatever, like we know about running backs being replaceable. The logical conclusion is you need to pay a lot of attention to the situation they're in, the offense they're in. And I think most fantasy managers do that to a degree, but like Le'Veon Bell never should have been getting drafted high with the Jets because he was going from a Pittsburgh team that not only was a good offense, but threw to the backs at a high rate. Right. And there's also the element of like having an efficient passing game helps rushing efficiency, men in the box, all of these big picture NFL type analyses that we see talk about how rushing efficiency is improved through, having fewer men in the box and all that stuff. Like Gurley's best season
last year.
Yeah, Gurley's best season with the Rams when McVay showed up, he had this massive high rate of runs against weak boxes, whatever, unstacked boxes. I can't think of the word. Light boxes is the term.
Less than 8 men in the box, right?
Yeah.
That's that mean? Yeah.
And so like Bell went from perfect situation in Pittsburgh where D'Angelo Williams was crushing when Bell was out, and every running back crushed, and James Conner crushed when he missed the season. And then he goes to the Jets, and it's very clearly not a good situation. He catches 66 balls in his first season with them and is still not good for fantasy. He doesn't get any touchdown equity. He's not picking up any yardage. None of the efficiency is there, either rushing or receiving. There's just no way for him to make plays in that offense. But he still showed some things at times. He's splitting out wide. He made a nice catch down the field in week 1 of this season. I think he's 28. He's not the LaShawn McCoy pickup from last year. McCoy was 31 or something. When McCoy was 28, he had a 1,500-yard season with the Bills. Like 28 is old. I don't like 28-year-old backs ever. I'm pretty much out when they turn 25. Like I want the young guys. But I think Le'Veon Bell was a good enough talent, and these Jets teams were such a bad running back situation, and now he's back in a good running back situation, a really good one, that there is some potential that he's good enough that they basically see themselves as having 2 very good backs, and they use them both. And they just interchange them for these full drives and all that. And we saw that. He had 2 16-yard runs in this game, And somebody tweeted out his first 16-yard carry. It was his first carry with the Chiefs, 16 yards. It would have he had one carry in his entire time with the Jets that was longer than that. That's all you really need to know about how the team impacts him. Like he had room to run down, like into gaps or whatever you want to say about the running game, because Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. There's more defensive backs on the field. There's more room to run. It's a different situation for him.
Yeah. Have you seen Darrell Williams run? We gave that guy a nickname. We called him the mentor because he's on the Chiefs. When you're on the Chiefs, it's going to make a huge difference for your fantasy value. Yeah. I mean, Le'Veon Bell, I think he's got more in the tank than Darrell Williams. He's got more in the tank than DeAndre Washington ever had. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the real question comes down to, like, how startable Le'Veon Bell is going to be, how startable CEH is going to be, because we knew that Darrell Williams didn't have any standalone value, and he was just contingent value. And now it's like, is Bell going to be a guy that you can flex? And is CEH a guy that comes down to where he's just kind of an RB2 flex? Or is he, does he have a bigger role than that? And it's really hard to say.
Tricky.
Yeah.
I think that the main fantasy takeaway from the bigger picture point I was just making is I'm concerned about CEH for those reasons, not necessarily because of the box score, because I do think you're right that this is a tough game to take a lot from, but the fact that they're already using him and the fact that I think that he could just be a lot better than what we've seen with the Jets on the Chiefs now are both bad things. If he does some good things, they'll use him, they'll give him a chance. They kept using McCoy last year, even though Damian Williams was always pretty good when he was playing. I think they'll give him a chance to play some. And in their mind, look, they're going to try to make another run at the Super Bowl. We'll keep CEH fresh. We'll keep two backs rotated. Like, that's smart. We were just talking about that. That makes sense. So it's not great for fantasy, probably for either of them.
I actually agree with Cobra here. Have you seen how many running backs went down? CH is a top 12 fantasy running back because the position died. Like, there's room for both of these guys to still be very fantasy relevant in this offense. I mean, you want pieces of an offense that's going to score, 30 to 40 points every week. Like, both
this is
of these
100%
guys.
true too. CH getting 14 touches with more than Zeke getting 19.
Yeah. I'm not panicking on CH. The bloom is off the rose a little bit, but it's still a nice situation.
If you were redrafting though, where would you take? Like, what round do you think you would take him in?
I think his probably true value CH would be what, like 4th round?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there's people.
I think he should go ahead. He's a 3rd rounder, I think. Okay. And I mean, 4th round is like, you either take the dusty guys there or a guy that you're really concerned about the role. If we're getting a full season from this point.
No. I was talking about we're redrafting right now in a best ball tournament.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then I agree. 4th.
I think it's like 4th, 5th round. Yeah.
All right, guys. I think we wrap this up. This has been fun. I need to go send out some trade offers for Antonio Brown because I think I'm wrong. I see the chat enthusiasm. I got to get this guy on my team.
Did you hear about a 6% chance to be a league winner?
We didn't get into this narrative here too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, people. Yeah, someone had said he's going to get all the goal line carries because they're going against the Jets this week.
I hope they do it. I hate Gase more than I like to see the running backs used correctly. So
yeah. I gave you my take. Like, I think both are fine. Like, give me CEH though for sure. I traded. Like, if you want to know my conviction, after I knew Le'Veon Bell was signing, I did a trade where I sent Ronald Jones for CEH in a package. So I wasn't scared of Le'Veon Bell.
Pete waited until he at 5 a.m. was like, guys, I'm thinking about sending this trade where I send away Ronald Jones. What do you think? And then I didn't answer immediately, and he's like, I sent it already. All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah, I just wanted Pat to know before I dropped that bombshell because I know Pat cares so much about my home league. A few housekeeping things. Obviously, if you guys haven't checked out Stat Chasing this week, check it out. We have decided that if we hit 1,000 YouTube subscribers, we will start to release those simultaneously, audio and video. Right now, we're doing it on a bit of a delay. The video comes out first. So if you are an audio head that would like to get your hands on those stats early, Subscribe to us on YouTube. Obviously, our buddy Ben Gretch pumping out the stealing signals. I literally read every single word each week. Great newsletter. What did you say, Gretch?
I don't know why. I wouldn't read it.
No, because
Ben, that's not a good plug.
But here you go, Gretch. I'll tell you why. Because I do 11 shows a week, and I need something to fucking talk about on those shows. So I listen to Stat Chasing, I read Stealing Signals, and I am good to go. So check that out. I don't know what happened with Crack Rock. I will needle him. I'm a little upset at him. I'm legitimately upset.
I don't like it.
He told us he was coming on. I made a fucking thumbnail. I put Grimace.
Grimace is in the
thumbnail. And he stands us up. What's up, dude? We got one of the better teams going. So I'll settle that beef with Crack Rock off air. Follow Ben Gretch, Yards Per Gretch on Twitter. Pat Crane. I'm Pete Overzet. We will see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in to Ship Chasing.